Hey there, mindful travelers, and welcome to Schnabel Park in San Antonio, Texas.
Yeah, hey there, welcome. So we are doing a brief lesson on gravity today. So thank you for joining us for Lessons with Novel Excursion. I wanted to give you a brief intro into what we've been doing. So we've been doing these for about 3 weeks now, I think. If you've checked us out on live, I appreciate you joining us. If you've gone over to YouTube to see the recordings, I hope you enjoyed that as well. We put a little more information down in the bottom in the doobly-doo below the video for you to have some context in what we're actually doing. But I wanted to talk a little bit about that before we go into it. This is just going to be a quick lesson about gravity today, as I said. But really, what we do here at Novel Excursion, our vision is to bridge cultures through travel, education, and service. In order to do that, we need to have a way to travel to learn and travel to serve. To do that with this little one here, we found homeschooling is the most conducive to our chosen lifestyle. So we want to travel because we believe it is the most transformative thing that you can do in your life. And we believe that will really make a difference in the way you grow, the way you see the world, and the way you interact with the people around you. Adrian's over there upset that he's not in the video right now, so I'll probably have to go get him in a little bit. But that is why travel is such a big deal for us. And in order to do that consistently, we needed to pull her out of school, homeschool her, and then find suitable ways of educating her while we're moving around. Granted, we have a home base right now, and we're not totally nomadic, but we do travel quite consistently. And right now, we're here waiting for Amanda to finish one of her classes. So that cuts into her schooling time. So instead of wasting the day, we chose to have these lessons while we're out here waiting for Amanda. So travel schooling is something that we have done within our curriculum here. So we've integrated various curriculums across the board, and travel schooling is what we use to really take advantage of the opportunities around us. And the big thing about travel schooling is that you can do it anywhere in the world. And you can do it with anything. So we're going to do a couple experiments here on gravity, and we're literally using props that we found right here, rocks that were found right here on the ground. So rocks and sticks that we just picked up. We didn't have to buy anything. We didn't have to, do any big planning. It was literally right here. So travel schooling is great because you can use what's around you. You get the experiential, the lesson. So you get to experience the world around you. Sorry, too many times I use experiential. I didn't know where I was going with that. But experience and observation is really the best way to learn, and I think you get that through travel. So that's what we do, and that's what we're trying to give you the tools and the insight into learning around you when you travel. So that's why we're doing these lessons, and we want you to be able to be creative and be innovative and find ways to, leverage the world around you to make a better world. So, without further ado, here we go on the lesson. Alright, Sarah. So, today we're going to be talking about gravity. Hey, nerd tourists, thank you for joining us. It's great to have an audience. So, I don't know if you could have seen it when I was doing the intro, but the rocks right here on this board are the props I was talking about. Okay, so Sarah, first and foremost, what is gravity?
Gravity is a force that keeps all matter together.
That's pretty close. So the definition is universal force of attraction acting between all matter. So that's a whole bunch of words, but what that means is basically keeping things together, right? And that's what you're saying. Okay, so we typically know gravity how?
As the force keeping us down on our feet.
Yeah, keeping us on Earth, right? So keeping us from floating off into the vast void of space, right?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so that's what gravity is. Who discovered gravity? Or who, not necessarily discovered gravity, but contributed to the discovering of gravity? Newton. Okay, so do you know the story that is typically told in schools?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
I specifically remember it because it's funny.
Okay, what is it?
So, one day Newton was sitting under his tree doing his homework, and an apple fell from the tree and bonked him on the noggin.
Oh no. Okay, so Newton's apple? Is that
Yep.
what it is? So an apple fell on his head. Why did it fall on his head?
Because of gravity. And he was wondering why it fell down onto his head instead of going up, up, up.
Exactly. So, all right. So something happened to him just by chance, right? Fell on his head, and we're trying to figure out why does it fall down, not fall up. Lo and behold, we discovered gravity, correct? Hey, World Vision, thank you for joining us. We're doing a lesson today on gravity. So Sarah just defined what gravity is. It is the universal force of attraction acting between all matter. And we discussed Newton, who discovered it how?
With an apple falling
With
on
an
his head.
apple falling on his head. That's silly.
Newton's apple.
All right, so we are going to do a quick discussion about the first three laws, first three of Newton's laws, okay? So this might get a little scientific beyond your third grade level, but we are going to try and teach it in a way that is easily understood. So, an object will not change motion unless a force acts on it. Okay, so what does that mean to you?
Well, if I took a ball and I threw it and you hit it with a bat, kind of like in baseball, me throwing it would be one force and you hitting it would be changing it with another force.
So, yes, but that's not describing this law. So, actually what just described this law is what you just did to those rocks. What happened?
Well, they were sitting on here and I accidentally bonked them off.
Okay, so they weren't moving, right?
No.
Okay, so they didn't move until what happened?
I smacked them off.
Until you put force on them. So when you smacked them, they fell. So see how all the rocks are sitting here right now? They're not moving unless we apply a force to it. Okay? Yeah. Don't knock another one off because we need those rocks for later. All right, so the second law is force of an object is equal to mass times acceleration. So that's a little more difficult. Do you know what mass is?
Yes, I do. I think that mass is a type of weight.
It is somewhat a type of weight, but
that's what I understand.
Often
so
misconstrued, so that means misunderstood. So it's not just weight. So mass is defined as the quantitative measure of inertia, and it is the resistance to a force, is the resistance that an object provides to change in speed. So that's hard to define in a way that you can understand, but really what that means is it is the opposite. How's the best way to describe it? Let's see. So quantitative measure of inertia. So in that resistance to the change of speed. So what do you think has more mass? That big rock there or the little stick?
Big rock.
Big rock, right? Not necessarily heavier, but it has more mass because it requires more force to push it, right? So that's what mass is. It's kind of hard to define in a simple way. But the second law is that force of an object is equal to mass times acceleration. So how fast it will go, its velocity, is the mass of that object times how fast you push it. Okay, do you understand what that means? Mm-hmm. So if we went there versus there, see? So I pushed the other one, the second one, faster, correct? Mm-hmm. So the second one it was moving faster, even though the masses for those two were very similar because they were both limestone rocks of about the same size. The second one would have had greater velocity because it had more force applied to it. Do you understand? Okay.
Would you like me to pick them up again?
No, that's okay. So that was one of our first examples, okay? So number 3, two objects that interact apply equal and opposite force to each other. Okay, so what does that mean?
I think I know.
Well, I hope you know. You're the only one here, and I asked you.
It's magnets.
Magnets?
Yeah.
So they do have a magnetic force, but that's gravity.
Wait.
But we're talking about two objects. When they interact with each other, they provide an equal and opposite force. So they push on each other at the same amount as they pull on each other. Mm-hmm. And it's the same. What's a good example of that? What?
Here. Come here.
No, just explain.
Well, if I smack my notebook and pencil together like this, they apply equal force, but they don't exactly pull on each other.
Not so much. So what I'm really thinking is planets. Okay?
Oh.
So the way we move around the sun, the way the Earth or the moon moves around the Earth, right? So they both pull and push on each other at the same time, right? So that reaction, that interaction between the two objects what does that create here on Earth? Something that we've seen. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with water. We were in Portland and we were trying to go to a cave that was too hard to reach because of something coming in.
The tide.
The tides. So, why do we have tides?
The force create the gravity. So, when the planets move, the force of the sun and the gravity pushing against Earth's gravity moves the waves.
So it's the moon. So the way the moon is pulling against the Earth, that is what's creating the tides. Okay? So the moon is pulling away from the Earth as the Earth is pulling the moon toward it. Okay? And that interaction of going back and forth makes those tides move. And that's why we have high and low tide. And that's why we couldn't get to that cave in Portland. You got it? Okay. So one thing that we will learn more about as you get older is called a constant. Okay? The constant for gravity. And this is something that you will always have to know, and no matter what level of math and physics and science you go into, you're always going to need to know it. Do you know what it is? What is the measure of gravity? I don't think you know it, so it's okay.
I think I know.
What?
0.
No. So it is 9.8 meters per second squared. Okay? So that is really fast. Very, very fast. Okay? And what that means... Stop. What that means is that all objects are pulled down to the Earth at that same rate. Okay? Regardless of their mass. Okay? And that's assuming... So things will fall at the same velocity in a vacuum. Do you know what that means?
Are we talking about black holes now?
So a vacuum is a space that's devoid of any other force acting on it. So that's why we have these different objects here. So grab two rocks that look the same size. Look like the same size. Okay. Now hold them at the same level and drop them. What happened?
Both of them hit the Earth at the same time.
Okay. Now grab the big rock. Nope, the big rock and the small stick. Which do you think is going to hit first?
I think that the tiny stick.
The tiny stick? Why?
Well, because it's smaller.
Okay, well let's try it. Drop them. At the same, you have to have them at the same height? Now drop them.
Actually, I think the big rock.
What happened?
They both hit.
Did they hit at the same time or at different times? They hit at the same time. How's that?
Because the gravity made them go down at the same time, like you were explaining.
Okay. Now try the big stick and the small rock.
I think both are gonna go.
Same time. Uh-oh. Okay, let's try one other thing. Let's try this leaf and a rock. Just grab a rock.
I'm gonna get a big one.
Okay. Now, which one's gonna hit first?
I think that either both are gonna hit or the rock's gonna hit first. The rock hit first.
But why is that? I thought it's constant. I thought gravity pulls down at the same rate, no matter what.
Well, that's not exactly true.
Are you sure? It's a constant. Constant means it never changes. So why did the rock hit first?
Because it's not anything to do with weight. I'm sure you're thinking that it is, but it's not.
What is it?
The leaf is kind of curved.
Okay.
So, it's kind of like a feather.
Okay. So what happened to the leaf as it fell?
It flipped around. So
What was it interacting with?
it was interacting with the wind.
Okay, so is that another type of force? That's another type of force. So that's what we were talking about with a vacuum. So a vacuum takes away all those forces. So this experiment is imperfect because there's wind, there's air, right? So when that leaf or feather or whatever it is, it has that extra surface area, So the surface area is the flat part, right? So this is the surface area, right? Your rock was like that, had less surface area. Okay? So when it interacted with the other forces, it slowed it down. Gravity was still pulling it down just as quickly, but there were other forces at play. Do you understand? Okay, so that's what we were talking about with a vacuum, when things will move at the same rate. Okay? Another thing we need to know is that Newton found is when something is put in motion, it will continue. It will continue to move until something else acts on it. So the only reason the rock and the leaf stopped is because there was something else acting on it. So if we were sent off into space, when rockets launch off into space, how do they stop from just leaving Earth completely and going into space?
How do they stop?
Yeah. How do they not just take off and go forever?
Because there's fuel in them.
So, one thing is gravity, right? Gravity of Earth is pulling them back down. But when they have enough thrust to shoot out of the atmosphere, they have enough thrust to escape gravity. Okay? But what they have to do is have reverse thrust, right? They have to turn off their engines and allow gravity to pull it back, right? Okay, so that's why if you were beyond the pull of gravity in space, you would just float off. And if someone were to just poke you and push you in one direction, you would keep going forever and ever and ever and ever until something else interacted with you. Do you understand? Cool. All right. So I think that's a good lesson for today. We're going to do one more fun thing before we go to check out gravity. So grab 2 rocks. We're almost done, little man. All right. Come on over here. We're going to see gravity at play. Come over here. All right. So we're here at a dangerous cliff, and we're not going to go past this fence. So if you look down, you can see way down there. That's where the cliff goes. All right. So we don't want to fall down there. But what we want to do is throw these rocks and see gravity interact on them. So throw. Throw as hard as you can. That was not a good throw. Come on. Throw it farther. There you go. Look at it go.
Whoa.
All right. Was that fun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
Do it one more time, and then we got to say goodbye.
That was farther.
All right. Come on.
Daddy?
Come on.
Daddy, I have something to tell you.
All right.
And the Mindful Travelers.
Okay.
Right before we leave.
Go ahead.
So, if you did see that trail down there, it's not safe if you do that, what I just did. Because if you threw it and it hit the trail, someone could be on the trail and you could injure them very badly.
Which is why I checked before we did that. So,
Yep.
All right, we had a great lesson about gravity today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you join us on Mondays and Wednesdays. Throughout the fall, we're going to continue doing these lessons with Novel Excursion. We'll do some more next spring. We're not sure of the schedule yet. We'll let you know. But we're looking for feedback. So let us know if you enjoy these. Let us know if it's useful and what we can do to make it better. I do know when we transfer this over to YouTube, the orientation is a little off. It's a little wonky because we have to do portrait orientation for the Instagram Live and then, you know, landscape for YouTube. So it's a little off, but that's okay. Most importantly is the content, and I hope this is useful to you. And I really hope this gives you kind of the inspiration to start looking around the world looking at the world around you in a different perspective and trying to find ways to learn. So you don't have to be a school-age kid to take advantage of that. There's so many opportunities to learn. The world is a wonderful place, and the only way we're going to make it better is if we open our minds and we try and learn from everyone, from everything and everyone. We make an impact on everything around us, and everything around us makes an impact on us. So thank you again for joining us, and I hope to see you next week. Sarah, as we say here at Novel Excursion,
Don't forget to travel mindfully. Bye.
bye.